The burial of the woman vampire. In the practice of archaeologists, sometimes there are deviant burials. They stand out due to the funeral rite that differs from the generally accepted in this culture. So, the dead could be buried outside the cemetery or deprived of some parts of the body. The appearance of deviant burials could be influenced by many reasons related both to the belief system and to the circumstances of life and death of people buried in an unusual manner. One of the categories of non-standard burials are the graves of the so-called vampires. Archaeologists believe that such burials contain the remains of people who were feared by others. They were afraid that the deceased would rise from their graves. To prevent this from happening, the dead were put stones in their mouth, mutilated, and even nailed to the ground. In addition, the placement of sickles and scythe on the neck or abdomen was practiced. They could appoint a vampire for an unusual appearance, witchcraft, suicide, or the first victims of epidemics. Polish archaeologists from the Nicholas Copernicus University in Turin, led by Professor Dariusz Pilinski, carried out excavations near the city of Bydgoszcz, where in 2005-2009, an early medieval necropolis was explored, the burials of which contained valuable inventory. This year, however, scientists have focused their attention on a neighboring 17th century burial complex damaged by agricultural work. In one of the burials, archaeologists discovered the remains of a vampire woman. An iron sickle lay around her neck and a padlock was placed on the big toe of her left foot. At the same time, the remains of a silk headdress have been preserved on the skull of this woman, which may indicate her rather high status, since in the 17th century it was a very expensive commodity. Perhaps the reason why the locals buried her in such an unusual way lies in the non-standard appearance of the woman. Her front tooth protruded forward. 110 graves in the Nile Delta. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities told about a new find made at the archaeological site of Kamal Kulgan in Dakalia province, about 150 kilometers northeast of Cairo. Archaeologists have unearthed 110 tombs, some have preserved human remains. 68 tombs of this number belong to the pre-dynastic period of the civilization of Lower Egypt, which spans 6000–3150 BC. These are oval-shaped pits carved into the sandstone. The people buried in them were located mainly on the left side with bent knees. Their head was facing west. The burial of a child in a ceramic vessel was also found here. The 37 rectangular tombs date from the ancient era known as the Second Intermediate Period, 1782–1570 BC, when the Hyksos ruled ancient Egypt. The depth of the burial pits is 85 centimeters, and the bodies in them were laid in an extended position, face up, but also in a westerly direction. Children who died during this period were buried in coffins or clay vessels. And 5 more oval tombs are evidence of the culture of Nigata III, 3200–3000 BC. Pottery, amulets, jewelry, and other interesting artifacts were found in these and other graves. Knight's War Spear. The Royal Armoury of Great Britain today holds nearly 80,000 samples of weapons, armor, and artillery dating from ancient times to the present day. The rich collection has been replenished with unique exhibits over a long period of its existence, and from the end of the 16th century, the spear of Charles Brandon, 1st Duke of Suffolk, was located in one row with them. Charles came from a not-so-noble family. Influenced by a successful choice of side in the Civil War of the Roses, the Brandons fought in the last battle for Henry Tudor, soon Henry VII. Charles himself was distinguished by a punchy character, which contributed to his brilliant career at the court of King Henry VIII, King of England from 1509 to 1547. He received the title of Duke of Suffolk at the age of 30. Before that, he managed to be a knight in Henry's retinue, even before the latter's ascension to the throne. It is believed that then they became close friends. Later, Charles even married the monarch's sister. They also participated in tournaments together and more than once faced in fights, in one of which the first Duke of Suffolk almost killed the king. The incident happened in 1524. With regards to military successes, Charles Brandon was seen more than once going into battle at the forefront of the British Army. Perhaps he broke more than one spear in the course of impressive knightly strikes against the enemies of the kingdom, but it was this weapon from the museum in Leeds that, judging by the preservation, did not see any battles at all. At the same time, you can't call it tournament either, with a full length of 4.36 meters, much more than the tournament copies. It weighs 8.87 kilograms, almost 3 times heavier than them. Very rare and unusual item. In the southeast of Germany, archaeologists have found at first glance the usual burial of a woman. They dated it to 600 AD, but the object with which she was buried was very strange and rare. Scientists from the Bavarian State Office for the Protection of Monuments say that the woman had a high social status. This is understandable because a metal folding chair was found next to her. Right, only a folded frame measuring 70 by 45 centimeters has been preserved from the chair, and the age of the woman was estimated at 40–50 years. Most likely, the chair, in addition to metal, was made of other materials such as wood and leather. For Germany, this discovery is the first, and in Europe it is already the 29th in a row, but only 6 of them had a metal frame. To discover such a find is considered a great gift in the world of archaeology. After all, it is very rare and its meaning is little understood. To better study the ancient world, you need to have more patterns and input data, and for this, archaeologists need to dig and study a lot. In our case, the burial with folding chairs had a symbolic meaning in the past. They buried people with such gifts that had a high social status, and this concerned more men. But that's not the problem, in most of the discovered burials were women. In addition to the chair, archaeologists found a pearl necklace with multicolored glass beads and a belt with brooches, and next to it lays the bone of an animal, perhaps a cow. What this present meant to the afterlife, archaeologists could no longer explain. Not far from the female burial, a male was also found. The man was buried with a full complement of weapons and artifacts that have yet to be studied. The most ancient heart. A new find of archaeologists came to us from Australia, although earlier it could have sailed to us. We are talking about the oldest fossilized heart of a living being that has ever been found. This is the heart of a fish, and its age is 380 million years. Previously, scientists could study the anatomy of ancient organs only on the basis of the skeletal system, since the soft tissues of fossil animals practically did not survive to this day. This time, the scientists were very lucky. The heart belongs to a group of armored fish, a type of arthrodere. These creatures lived on our planet between 420 and 360 million years ago. They were among the first vertebrates to develop a jaw. In addition to the heart, scientists managed to find the stomach, intestines, and liver of ancient fish. The most interesting thing is that all the organs lay in the original position, and for hundreds of millions of years, they were not crushed by heavy rocks. Finding fish organs in their original form is an incredible miracle for the scientific world. This helped scientists see how evolution took place and what the anatomy of fish looked like about 400 million years ago, as if they were studying freshly caught fish. Based on the fossils they found, they made the first 3D model of an arthrodere heart. The researchers said that the anatomy of ancient fish was not much different from the human. Mysterious Sanskrit inscriptions. An incredible discovery was recently made in India that greatly enriched the history of the already vibrant temple. 21 copper plates from the medieval era were discovered by the authorities of Sri Salem and the Mallikarjuna temple in India and date back to the 16th century and possibly even earlier. The tablets found were reported to have been written in the subcontinental languages Sanskrit, Kannada, and Telugu. In general, literally over the past few months, many artifacts have been discovered discovered in Salem. Of the 6 sets of copper plates, 4 sets are written in Sanskrit and Nandinagari script, and 2 others are in Telugu, but scientists have yet to decipher them. Moreover, these findings have become the 3rd wave of such discoveries over the past few years. In October 2020, a brass box was discovered in ancient Gantamadam, containing 15 British-era gold coins, 18 silver coins, and a gold ring. In 2017, literally became a treasure trove, bringing, among other important artifacts, 700 grams of gold jewelry, including 3 gold cadeums weighing 525 grams, 18 gold coins, and 4 rings. The silver component of the treasure is 147 silver coins, a silver vessel weighing 395 grams, and a glass of 133 grams. It is worth noting that the Mallikarjuna temple in Salem, in the southern Indian state of Andhra Pradesh, is dedicated to the deity Shiva, one of the most popular and revered gods of the Hindu pantheon. He received patronage from royal kings and empires, especially during the Middle Ages, and some inscriptions indicate that the temple has existed since at least the 2nd century AD. The first civilization on Earth. The data available to historians indicate that it was the Sumerian civilization that preceded the rest. The Sumerians came to the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, also known as Mesopotamia, at the end of the 4th millennium BC, driving out the Proto-Sumerian tribes from their homes. The Sumerian civilization had a pronounced agricultural character supported by an extensive irrigation system on which the life of the first city-states of Mesopotamia depended: Kish, Uruk, Sippar, etc. The Sumerians are considered the founders of cuneiform, the earliest form of writing known to science. The most ancient monument of Sumerian writing is a tablet from the city of Kish, dating from approximately 3500 BC. The system of symbols depicted on it is a transitional link from pictographic proto-writing to cuneiform writing. According to the results of archaeological research, the Sumerians had knowledge of the extraction and smelting of copper, and were also very familiar with the wheel. Each Sumerian city was an independent state, nom, with a leader and patron god. In such a city, the prototype of the ancient Greek city-states up to 50–60,000 people could live. However, a kind of center was still. It was Nippur, in which the sanctuary of Enlil, the main deity of the Sumerian pantheon, one of the most ancient religions in the world, was located. To date, the history of the mysterious civilization of the Sumerians has overgrown with a huge number of conjectures, but it is known for certain that these people had knowledge of the heliocentric system of the world, knew about the circle of the zodiac, the sexagesimal number system. Its echoes have come down to us in the dial of the clock and the division of the year into seasons and months, and kept a historical chronicle. In the 24th century BC, the Sumerian civilization was conquered and absorbed Babylonian kingdom. About Atlantis. The civilization mentioned in Plato's dialogues, we only know that it existed about 9,000 years ago, was located on the islands near the Strait of Gibraltar and sank to the bottom of the ocean due to a powerful earthquake. Most modern scientists agree that Atlantis is nothing more than an invention of the ancient Greek philosopher, but many researchers still do not give up hope of finding confirmation of its existence. In the epics of the inhabitants of Tibet, India, and Polynesia, you can find references to an ancient civilization called Lemuria. According to legends, about 80,000 years ago, the waters of the Indian Ocean washed the mainland inhabited by snake-headed proto-men. In the middle of the 19th century, scientists suggested that the island of Madagascar may be part of a sunken continent. Later studies showed that about 60 million years ago, Madagascar was part of the Hindustan Peninsula. Perhaps there is no mystery and the notorious Lemuria is part of the Hindustan Plate, previously separated from the Asian continent. Hyperborea is another mysterious northern continent whose inhabitants are credited with creating the most ancient Slavic civilization. An indication of Hyperborea is very often found in ancient Greek mythology, but still the overwhelming majority of researchers are inclined to the pseudo-historical nature of this location. The oldest natural mummy on the planet. The mummy was found in the Spirit Cave in Nevada in 1940. Despite the fact that the man died more than 10,600 years ago, his mummy is perfectly preserved. It is interesting that the body was wrapped in a sheet and a reed mat, and moccasins were preserved on the feet of the deceased. Previous analyses have shown that the remains belong to a man who died at the age of 40. Thanks to comfortable conditions, the mummy has almost completely survived to this day. The whole upper part of the skull, the skin on the back and shoulders, a bunch of dark hair in the back of the head. Next to the man, scientists found about 70 different items including knives, baskets, and animal bones. They also found 2 woolen bags filled with ashes and bones of cremated people. Litigation about the origin of the mummy began in 1996 when scientists conducted the first radiocarbon analysis, which showed that the age of the mummy is 9,400 years. Around the same time, representatives of the Shoshone tribe, a North American group of Indian tribes who speak the language of the Uto-Aztecan language family, declared that the mummy belonged to them. The Shoshone demanded that the remains be handed over immediately under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, but the scientists did not accept this request, since the mummy's belonging to any people was not established. Then the long legal proceedings began, which lasted almost 20 years. Some scientists did not want to give away the remains to the tribe, as the mummy occupied a place of honor in the museum and told a lot about the ancient inhabitants of North America. 2 years ago, representatives of the Shoshone tribe gave specialists permission to conduct the first genetic analysis of the mummy. The analysis showed that the remains of the man are indeed of American origin. Scientists explained that this mummy was extremely important for the tribe, since the Cave of Spirits has a sacred meaning for them. The mummy has now been officially handed over to the tribe. Amazing Towers of Silustani. Some chalps, this is the name of these cylindrical structures, quite unexpectedly impressed with the quality of the masonry and the size of the blocks. There are many much simpler ones, but they are quite possibly a later attempt to repeat perfect forms. Even more striking was the masonry of the so-called square chalpa of the Inca period. The Incas perhaps only hammered it with rubble inside. It is also strange that the blocks from this chalpa are scattered at a distance of tens of meters from it. It is unlikely that the Spaniards, trying to get to the treasures in the burial, would have spent such efforts. The blocks would be lying nearby, but then what kind of force threw these blocks so far? The accepted version, chalps are the graves of leaders and nobility. It is possible that this is how the Indians used them, but it is not clear what the Indians were not able to do originally for. The cavity inside could be filled with rubble any time. The closest analogy is brick kilns, which come across nearby on the way to Bolivia. The ovens have a very similar shape and the same opening at the bottom for air inlets. However, chalps would be good at smelting furnaces. Geoglyphs in India. Surely everyone knows about the geoglyphs of the desert or the Nazca Plateau. These are huge drawings of animals and birds, as well as about 13,000 lines, stripes, and about 700 geometrical figures made on the surface of the plateau by excavation from 30 to 50 centimeters deep and up to several hundred meters long. They can only be seen from a bird's eye view, and until now, they were considered unique. However, in 2018, similar drawings were discovered in India in the state of Maharashtra and caused quite a stir in the archaeological world. Moreover, it depicts animals characteristic of Africa and not at all for India. It is precisely this discovery that casts doubt on the version of the official history. After all, it was previously stated that the Nazca lines were made by the local population for irrigating fields. This is the most common version, although it does not stand up to criticism. Then comes the option that the Nazca complex was created to solve astrological problems and is an astronomical calendar, but for some reason, in all assumptions, it is forgotten that the lines are visible only from a great height, and using a calendar that is not visible from the ground is at least stupid. I doubt that the ancient people were more stupid than we are. I have no doubt that an older civilization existed before us which did not occupy separate continents, but lived all over the globe. Hence, the same traces left in the form of mysterious buildings with polygonal masonry similar in Asia and America. And the geoglyphs of India prove this once again. Or do you think that different people on different continents came up with one idea to draw huge drawings visible only from above? What for? Subscribe to the channel if you liked the video and write your comments about it. Thanks for your views. Bye everyone!